gentlemen, welcome back. This is version 3 of our little mock draft series here. First of all, I just want to say thanks for all the people checking out the videos. I'm kind of surprised and I don't know, just pretty overwhelmed with the amount of responses I've been getting. A lot of views, tons of comments, a lot of real good insights, occasional you're an idiot, which is also fine. This past week, however, we did a mock draft. We had a couple participants, which was awesome. I told you last time that is ultimately what I do want to build. I think it was a lot of fun. We did it yesterday. We did it during the day. It was just we had a little group chat with me and a couple guys, and we just it was organized chaos. We'd never done it before, so I was kind of making up the rules as we went along. I got some ideas for next time how we're going to make it better. My goal is to get at least 32 guys, one guy per team, and to try to make you feel like a real GM, right? You just have your one team to focus on, because it's tough when you got like 8 teams, and it's kind of, once that team comes up, you're looking like, oh man, I probably should have traded up and got that guy, whatever, right? So your sole focus is on your pick, and we had some trades going on. It was a lot of fun. At the end of it, I was kind of doing the whole, all right guys, thanks a lot, check it out next week, we'll come back, whatever. And he's like, yeah, no, that was a lot of fun, but I want to keep going. Let's do round 2. So we are going to get to that at some point, depending on the amount of people wanting to get involved. Maybe we'll do, I don't know, we could do a staff of people on one team, or we could have one guy doing round 1, one guy doing round 2, whatever. We'll figure it out. We got a long way to go, but I was very happy with how it went, even though it was disorganized and whatnot. I had a lot of fun, and the guys had a lot of fun. So with that said, be sure you get into the Facebook group. You can see that on the top left, but the link will be in the description. My Twitter, if you want to reach out to me there for whatever reason, you can see that. It's at @pack_daddy. Otherwise, my email, if you want to reach me there, some things are just better off. I've had some people message me in the comments, and pretty much everybody's going comments, and it just isn't the best way to do it a lot of times. If it's just a comment, that's fine. I am taking note of a lot of this stuff. Some of the moves I wanted to make or did make in this last draft were based on the comments, but especially guys like commenting, hey, I want to get into the mock draft. Well, I can't do that from the comment section. So if you want to get involved, you have to go to the Facebook group, because that's where everything goes down. That's where all the communication takes place. That's where everything happens. Otherwise, again, Twitter or email would be a good way to just so we can communicate back and forth. It's so hard to keep up with all the comments and everything else that's going on. So anyways, with that, we'll jump into the draft. I think, you know what, bottom right, PayPal. It does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of money. It's not a pay for play. I'm not going to do that. The Patreon thing, if you want to get involved, maybe if it gets overwhelming and we got like hundreds of people wanting to do it and it's just not possible to keep up, we'll have to do something like that. But as best as I can, I'm going to make everything free. But I would appreciate anything and everything you can contribute to this, to what I'm doing. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, not making any money doing this. I really enjoy it, but I am paying money. I'm paying for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different things to try to keep this and whatnot going. So if you have it, if you appreciate what we're doing here, if you appreciate all the work that I've done, any donation, it is PayPal, so if you want to give $1, just don't, because they take 30 cents off the top and then a small percentage. So 30 cents off the top of $1, you're basically giving me nothing with that. So maybe just give me $12 and call yourself good for the year if you want to go that route. But anything at all you can give would be much appreciated. With that, we will dive into the draft. And this is going to be a little different. Normally what I do is I'll give the picks and then give my explanation for why I gave the picks. But since more than half of these weren't even my picks, I'm going to kind of do a little different, which is just say the draft as though, kind of like you're watching it on TV, you got people just commenting on it, right? Like, well, that was stupid. That's kind of what I'm going for. And that's kind of, in the future, that's what I want to be. I want you guys to run the draft your way, and then, we got this whole kind of, just comment on it. What do you think? So first up, we do have the Cleveland Browns, and there was a little bit of chatter about, hey, anybody want to trade up and move up into this spot? I'm not sure if you got any offers. But either way, he decided to stay and make it pay, and he went with Saquon Barkley, just taking the talent, you know what I mean? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of opinions about that. My personal opinion, the Browns need a quarterback. They have to get a quarterback, but Saquon Barkley is understandable. There's always that one guy, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, you look at it and you go, you can't reach. However, there are quarterbacks in this draft that are that way, that are considered legitimate top 10, not like they're second-round guys, but we need a quarterback, so we're going to take one, like legitimate top guys. But in this case, Saquon Barkley is a solid talent. He's the kind of guy, we've seen what running backs can do for teams. Saquon Barkley is one of the best prospects to come out in a very long time. So the Browns, no question, will be a better team with Saquon, but they got a lot more work to do and more picks to come. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers, and based on the comments that I saw, it was, we don't need all this stuff. You're an idiot. We need offensive linemen. So I thought, you know what? This was my pick. I'm gonna say that I want to trade back, and I got a crazy offer that I just couldn't really turn down. It's more complimentary toward the team that I traded with. However, it sort of makes sense. I traded with the Buffalo Bills, trading all the way up from pick 18. They gave me both of their first-round draft picks. They have two of them, and a second-round pick from 2019. The Buffalo Bills are going to move up, and they're going to select quarterback Josh Rosen. So the Bills clearly not happy with their situation. It seems like a ridiculous trade, but you know what? It kind of makes sense. The Bills are not happy with their quarterback. I'm not entirely sure why. I've mentioned before I don't hate their quarterback, but it's a great quarterback draft. Josh Rosen is a star. There's one thing, you talk about Lamar and you talk about Darnold and you talk about all these different guys, and there's some people that love him, some people that hate him. Josh Rosen is pretty solid. Everybody seems to agree he's a top guy. Some people have even said he's the best in the entire draft. The Bills are not playing around. They're not going to sit back and take their two first-round draft picks. They're going to move up and get them. Like I said, the 49ers, it was a little bit of a Bills favored. Despite the giving up two firsts and a second, it still favors the Bills a little bit. It was a good deal for them. But the 49ers now needing a lot of things were willing to trade back and now have two first-round draft picks. And they're taking the picks is basically what they're doing. They realize they need a lot of stuff. They're going to take the picks. Unfortunately, my plan was to trade back and get offensive linemen, but I gave away the 49ers to another GM. So we'll have to see what they went ahead and did. Next up, we have the New York Giants, and the New York Giants are not willing to trade away their spot. They got the guy that they want. They went ahead and picked quarterback Lamar Jackson. Every time I say this, Lamar Jackson is completely up in the air. He's got to be one of the most, in terms of what people think of him, he's got to be one of the most volatile, right? Some people think he's the best in the draft. I even saw somebody comment say he's not even worth a third-round pick. I don't necessarily disagree. However, I think it's nearly impossible he falls out of the first round just based on his talent, right? I'm sure there are teams who look at this and say, I would never touch him. I don't think he's going to be a good quarterback. I'm of that mind that I'm worried about his ability to play in the NFL. Some other people are, but do you really think he's going to fall out of the first? You're telling me there's 32 teams who look at Lamar Jackson and go, not interested. Now, granted, I say 32 teams. There are a lot of teams who have quarterbacks and they're fine. There's no way they're going to take him no matter what, at least not in the first, but I just don't see it. I don't see him falling completely out. But either way, the Giants completely disagree with this in this situation. They think Lamar Jackson is an elite talent, and athletically, there's no question. His arm talent or his arm strength, his speed. I mean, the guy, what does he run? Like a 4.34, I think he runs. Just the guy's incredibly fast. I mean, he's one of the faster players in the NFL, much less for a quarterback. So, anyways, moving on. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos are also going to make a trade here. Now, I got to tell you right off the bat, the trades were hot and heavy to begin with. I think everybody was real excited to get in this and make moves, so the trades were very front-loaded. One of them is even a little ridiculous, but we'll get to that a little bit. But at this point, the Denver Broncos are going to make a trade with the New York Jets. Jets are going to move from 8 to 4 because they got a guy that they love, quarterback Sam Darnold. And this is a somewhat realistic possibility. I mean, this could happen. It just depends which teams like which quarterback, right? A lot of different skill sets, a lot of different teams thinking different players are going to be better at this, that, or the other thing. If the Jets think Sam Darnold is the best player in this entire draft and he falls down to number 4 and the Jets just can't believe it, and he's within striking distance, and they're assuming Denver's going to take him, so they get on the phone with Denver and they're like, hey, man, what do you think about a trade? And they actually say yes. Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to go up and get our guy. In this case, the Jets offer up a hefty price. They're giving a first, second, and a third to Denver. I think they overpaid, but I was the Denver GM, and I wasn't going to try to change their mind on that one. So the Broncos probably want to stick and get a quarterback here, but they were willing to take the hefty price. The Jets were willing to give away pretty much everything they have to move up and take their guy. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts, and I was a little torn on this pick here, but the Colts went with Minkah Fitzpatrick, safety out of Alabama. You know, probably not a lot of people are going to love the pick, but I just went with the talent. And to be completely honest, I'm not a big Minkah fan. I like Alabama players. I like Alabama defensive players. I just haven't been sold on him quite yet. But there's no question, everywhere and anywhere you look, Minkah Fitzpatrick is seen as just this elite, freakish athlete. And if that is the case, we got a guy who is a top 3 kind of guy who's getting pushed down because of the situation with all the quarterbacks and everybody drafting and moving up and whatnot. So the Colts are going to stick where they're at, and they're going to take the best player available, Minkah Fitzpatrick. He can play safety, he can play cornerback, so it's just a matter of wherever they want him as a defensive back, they can use him. He's an instant upgrade. Maybe not the top priority, but you look at what's available at this point in time. Offensive lineman obviously is a need for that team, but they're drafting too early for that, in my opinion. Maybe you could reach, maybe you could try to trade back, but nobody wanted to trade. It is what it is. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears, and this is probably the most interesting thing that happened the entire draft. As the Bears GM, I stood my ground, and I said, I want out of this pick. I don't want to pick here. I want a wide receiver, and I don't want to reach for one. And the only offer I got came from the Cleveland Browns, who are 1 pick later than me. The Cleveland Browns offered me a 4th-round pick, which by itself is not horrible. But the Browns were also willing to trade Josh Gordon, which I found intriguing, to say the least. So, say what you want to say about Josh Gordon, he's maybe one of the best in the NFL if he can get his stuff together. In this situation, the Browns are saying, we're done with this guy. We're going to move up. We're going to deal him. And we're going to give up a 4th round. We're going to move up 1 spot to get the guy that we really want. The Bears are saying we really wanted to move back a little further, so we're not reaching for a wide receiver, maybe pick up a couple more picks. But you know what? If you're going to offer me a wide receiver, and a really, really good one at that, and it depends on what the Bears think about him, if they even want him. But in this case, if I'm the Bears GM, yeah, I'm going to take a shot at Josh Gordon. And 4th isn't very much, but I'll absolutely take that as well. And all I have to do is slide back 1 spot. Fine. So the trade is done. I'm moving back 1 spot. The Browns move up. This is where it gets a little interesting. The Browns move up and they select linebacker Rashaan Evans. Now, again, pretty trade happy. They need a quarterback. They didn't get a quarterback. Probably could have traded back to get a linebacker of any kind, much less Rashaan Evans. But in this case, and I spoke with the GM afterward, and he just said the Browns need more than anything a linebacker. He really, really likes Rashaan Evans. Potentially thought he was going to be gone. I don't really know the situation there. But in his mind, inside linebacker is the top need for this team. He traded up, got who he thought was the best in this draft. So the Browns now have Saquon Barkley and Rashaan Evans. There you go. And by the way, and I said this before, I did a draft for the Browns last time, and I really liked my picks. I hated who the Browns picked last year. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, I don't like these Browns picks, and I could absolutely see the Browns doing something similar to this. Maybe not that crazy, trading up to get a linebacker, but I could absolutely see the Browns making their 2 first-round draft picks and just shaking my head saying, this team will never, ever be a good football team. So next up, the Bears are on the clock, and this is kind of where it gets interesting because it's still, in my mind, a reach for a wide receiver. Do we reach and double down, which is a security thing with Josh Gordon maybe not panning out, or do we trust the Josh Gordon thing and see what happens? Now, I did put the feelers out, maybe trade back 1 more time. Nobody was really interested, but you know what? I'm okay with that. And the reason is we're going to trust that Josh Gordon gives us a little something, and even if not, we can get a wide receiver later. Because there is a guy who's extremely talented who's still on the board. Safety, Derwin James. We're going to take him. I know a lot of people thinking that this is a little crazy, but things got crazy when we just picked up Josh Gordon. The biggest need we have just got, we'll say, satisfied. We have the ability now to set that to rest, to not have to reach or fall back out of the top 10. We're going to stick at 7. We're going to take a guy that is an extremely good football player. I really do like Derwin. As much as I can't really figure out why Fitzpatrick is so popular, I can absolutely see why Derwin James is. He's just this big physical monster of a safety, and I really like him. The Bears now, in this case, who have essentially satisfied 2 needs of theirs, a wide receiver and a safety, and they've got 2 elite players in doing so. So it's as far as I'm concerned, depending on what you think about Josh Gordon, this has been a phenomenal draft for the Chicago Bears up to this point. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos, they could have stood there and got their quarterback, but I think this is a good situation as it is. They picked up a second and a third round pick. They're still picking in the top 10, and they pick up offensive lineman Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle. I got some negative feedback when I made the pick, but I don't care. I like the pick. I think they need offensive line help desperately. You might say it's a reach. I don't really know. I think Mike McGlinchey is potentially a decent spot here at 8. But even if it is a reach, I'm not going for a quarterback. I don't really want to trade back again because I don't want to lose out on quarterback and my tackle. So I'm just going to stick here and I'm going to make it work. Maybe in the second round or later we can try to get a quarterback. Hopefully we can get that figured out. But I've even seen in the comment section people saying stop giving these guys quarterbacks. They have quarterbacks. They just need to be able to protect them. So for that reason, with that feedback, this is the pick I made. We traded back. We let the other guys fight over the quarterbacks. We're going to pick up some picks, and we're going to get some offensive line help. Broncos take Mike McGlinchey. Picking at number 9, we have the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, as I mentioned last time, they need a little bit of everything. It's just a complete nightmare. You kind of want to just take the best available, but in this case, I'm kind of thinking even if he's not the best available, which he might be, you got to look at positionally what's the most important, and I think they need to look at quarterback. So I have them taking quarterback Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma. Who knows? Draft Tech has him as the number 2 overall on their board, just flat out. Not number 2 quarterback, number 2 player in the NFL, or excuse me, in college football right now, coming into the NFL. So, take it for what it's worth. They really like him. Again, it's going to come down to what do these GMs think. So in this situation, I had Miami looking at them as a great quarterback. They need a quarterback, and they got a quarterback. It's just that simple. Is he going to be able to turn this team around completely? Probably not. I think this team is going to be hurting for a while. The last little bit of talent that they had in Jay Ajayi, they gave away. They do have Sue and Wake. How long these guys are going to be on the team, I don't know. But basically, they have nothing on this team. So we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to do it with a quarterback, and we're just going to start to build around it, right? It's total rebuild mode, and we have the opportunity to take a real good quarterback, and that's a great place to start, and that's where we're starting. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they did not wait for anything. They put in their ticket instantly. They didn't want to hear any offers or anything. They came out and they drafted Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State. I haven't put in the work that I should be putting in to watch these guys. Been doing a lot of other work trying to get things figured out, but as things get a little more smooth, I really want to, and again, get into the Facebook group because I want to do this as a community. I've been posting some videos of these guys playing, and I want to get a lot of feedback about what you think. But from what I've seen as far as edge rushers, Bradley Chubb is my favorite. I really like watching him play. He's just a dominant football player, and that's what I like in an edge rusher. I know there's a lot of guys that they're real fast around the edge kind of thing, but this guy, he can do everything. He can beat you around the edge, but I mean, as far as just dominating the person in front of him, I don't need to run around you. I can come right through you. I love watching Bradley Chubb play. I think it's a good pick for the Bucs. They need quite a bit of help in a lot of places, but I think he might be the best talent available. It's a premium position, and it's a need for the Bucs. It makes a lot of sense. I think it was a very good pick for the Buccaneers here. Next up, we have the LA Chargers. LA Chargers also content to sit. They did, listen to a few offers, but at the end of the day, they went with quarterback out of Wyoming, Josh Allen. Chargers are building something special over there. A lot of it is young talent. It's a defense that is ascending. They're building with wide receivers. They're building in a lot of areas. They've got a couple guards that are going to be coming back next year. They could have potentially a very good offensive line. But in order to keep this machine going, we got to plan for the future. I'm not saying we have to dump our quarterback next year. As a matter of fact, you don't want to. Take a very good quarterback, Josh Allen, sit him on the bench behind one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL right now, despite what you want to say about him. He's a very, very talented, a very intelligent quarterback that can teach a guy like Josh Allen a ton. Let him sit on the bench for a year or two, and then when we move on, we can transition smoothly and just keep this machine running. Because that's what you want, seamless transitions. Just keep winning football games. Keep being a top talented team, whatever you want to call it, right? Just the ability to transition, especially after losing a quarterback, is very difficult to do. And if you're going to do it, this is the way you do it. Grab the quarterback and sit him behind Rivers. Forgot his name for a minute there. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. I've been getting away from drafting offensive linemen because I get tired of doing it, but we're right back at it because the Cincinnati Bengals are going to select offensive tackle Connor Williams, coming out of Texas. The Bengals are always kind of a middling team, right? They're a team that's just kind of in that, missing the playoffs, wild card-ish kind of area. I don't know how much better that gets as long as it's the Andy Dalton show. It's kind of like the Lions, the whole situation that they have over there. They have a ceiling, and I just don't see them pushing through it. They do need offensive line help, so this is a good pick in my opinion. But to be completely honest, I feel like this team goes nowhere better with Andy Dalton at the helm. And I don't dislike Andy Dalton as much as a lot of other people do, but the guy's got a ceiling. It is what it is. And he's not going to push this team into the Super Bowl. So a good pick, a necessary pick, but at some point we really got to consider getting another quarterback and going in a different direction because I just think this team is capped out. You've had good defenses over the years. You've had one of the best wide receivers for a very long time. You've got a decent running back. You can try to build an offensive line. You can build this team to be as good as it's ever going to be, but, I just think it is what it is as long as you got Andy Dalton. But again, a good pick. I think it's a good value. I think it's a good player. I think it's definitely a need. So kudos to the Bengals. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, and once again, they did not wait for trade offers. They didn't even want to hear it. They turned in their ticket, and they took guard Quenton Nelson out of Notre Dame. I've heard a few people say that guard is not really worth that high of a pick. This is a little, we're outside of the top 10 at this point, so maybe there won't be a lot of complaints. Clearly a need, clearly a talented guy, but I just want to address that really quick. I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore. I'm not sure if I've said it already or not, but you look at the way the NFL is going, and I think there's a lot of talent coming up the middle with the Aaron Donald types. And I think the way the NFL is going, you're starting to see an emphasis on these more talented and athletic inside guys. I mean, you look at the Packers, it's the same thing. It's the real talent against the run and against the pass. It's not Clay Matthews and Nick Perry. It's Mike Daniels and Kenny Clark. Right? It's this interior pressure, the guys that just grab your center and guard and push them straight back into your quarterback. These guys are disruptive on every single play. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're running, you're passing, they're just blowing you up constantly. So the need for the need for that left tackle exclusively, like he's the most important guy behind your quarterback. It's the left tackle, and after that, it's corner and it's all this other stuff. Guard and center and right tackle, who cares? I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you need some guards that can play some real good football. And I think Quenton Nelson, being as good as he is, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes top 10. And we'll see how it goes. And now, especially now, you look at running backs and how essential these guys are. Right? You look at what's the next best thing. You look at what happens. Quarterbacks. Why is the left tackle important? It's because the quarterback's important. Why is the guard important? It's because the running back is important. As these teams lean more and more on their running backs, and as defenses lean more and more on defensive tackles, the priority of getting talented guards and centers, for that matter, is going to go through the roof. It's just a natural thing. It has to happen. It doesn't make any sense to say running backs and defensive tackles are important, but who cares about guard? It just doesn't make any sense. So, in this case, the Cardinals made a phenomenal pick. Quenton Nelson is a phenomenal guard. It's an important, and I would dare say, premium position at this point in time. And it's a need pick for the Cardinals, so it makes sense that he did not waste any time putting in the ticket, turning it in. He wants guard Quenton Nelson out of Notre Dame. At this point, it was actually really funny because we had a little group chat going on, and one of the guys piped up, and I'm picking for the Packers because that is my team, and I'm thinking, you know what? I shouldn't give it away, but bottom line is I realized that cornerback is going to be important, and one of the GMs decided he was going to tell the whole group, hey, it's interesting, no corners have gone yet. And I told him, shut your mouth, why are you talking right now? So instantly I decide I want to start trading up. And the GM that was on the clock, which is, by the way, the Oakland Raiders, they're on the clock. I reached out to him, please, please, please let me trade up with you. He says nope, he wants to stick, and he takes cornerback Tavares McFadden out of Florida State, and I'm just having a panic attack at this point. So Tavares McFadden is a talented corner. I actually really like him from when I was watching him. I think in terms of value, seeing that he's sort of a late first, early second type guy, you look at it and go, I think he's worth more than that. So I don't hate the pick. I think it's a real good pick. 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a pretty big guy. Comes from a real good program. So yeah, Oakland clearly needs help along the defensive side. Whether or not you think corner is a top priority, I don't know. That's up to you. Let me know in the comments section, or let our GM know in the comments section, I suppose. But no, I like the pick. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and this time I was actually able to get in the guy's ear. As the Green Bay Packers GM, I was begging and pleading to let me move up. I offered a 4th-round draft pick, and the Dallas Cowboys were willing to take that trade offer. The Green Bay Packers moved up, and we got cornerback Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. I know as a Packer fan, I'm getting a little tired of drafting corners and them failing. And I know we're hearing, we've got to get a pass rusher and this, that, and the other. But really, what is going on in Green Bay right now? We've got a top quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. We have wide receivers that, maybe that needs to be addressed at some point with Jordy getting older, whatever. But it's not a top priority going into 2018. The run defense is coming around. The run game is, probably needs some offensive line help. But the biggest need is what it's always been. It's pass defense. Teams can just sit back and pick apart the Packers secondary at will. And it's just that has to change. And I know you're getting sick of drafting corners, just like I'm getting sick of drafting corners in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, whatever. But we got to fix it. It has to be fixed. Kevin King has not done much. Maybe 2nd year he'll be better. I don't know. Demarius Randall, maybe he's turning a corner. I mentioned that in my Packernet podcast that I just got done doing. But I don't know that I can trust it. He's been bad for 3 straight years. Devon House, he was bad with the Packers when we had him several years ago. He's not very good this year. They just don't have very much in the secondary, despite all the draft capital that keeps getting put in, and it needs to be fixed. I mean, if we're going to do something while Aaron Rodgers is on this football team, we got to address the pass defense. So for that reason, the Packers are going to move up. They're going to grab cornerback Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. Next up, we have the Washington Redskins, and the Washington Redskins are going to stick and take running back Derrius Guice. Guice coming out of LSU, and I actually really like this pick. Last week I had them taking Nick Chubb, the running back out of Georgia. I had them taking him because I felt like they needed a bigger back to complement, what's his name, Chris Thompson or whatever, the sort of 3rd down back that they have out there. So Derrius Guice right now listed at 5'11", 218. He's a pretty big guy, comes out of a great program. He's definitely considered a 1st-round running back, so this toward the end of the 1st round anyways. I really like the pick. I think it's a solid pick. They need other things. Again, they need to lock down their quarterback. They need to get him some wide receiver help. They need a lot of stuff. But I do think they definitely need to complement their pass game and their quarterback with a solid running back, and I just don't think they have one. They don't have a between-the-tackles running back. Derrius Guice, I think, is an extremely talented guy. All the talk is about Saquon Barkley, but there's some other talented running backs, and I think Derrius Guice is one of the top guys that we need to look at. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys are back on the clock. Dallas Cowboys are going to select wide receiver Courtland Sutton. He's a big, bad wide receiver out of SMU. Now, I actually had them taking I may have even had him taking Courtland Sutton last week, but whoever it was, I had him taking a wide receiver. I had mixed reviews on that pick, but obviously having made the pick, I see the validity of it. I think they need to get some more explosiveness on the offense. Again, seems a little ridiculous considering they've got Zeke and they got Dak and they got Dez, but I think they need a little bit more juice. Defense obviously needs to be a priority for that team, but at this point in the game, Courtland Sutton, you could go a lot of different ways, but he's, maybe I was wrong going with a big guy, and I Courtland Sutton being 6'4", 216, maybe he's not the right pick here. This wasn't my pick, but I made a similar pick. Maybe what you want is sort of a Christian Kirk, kind of a slot guy. I think maybe that would have been a better pick than Courtland Sutton as I think about it. But I definitely understand the pick. But again, as always, let me know in the comments section what you think about the Dallas Cowboys grabbing a big, bad monster like Courtland Sutton. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers, who are taking the first of their 2 picks that they grabbed after drafting or moving out of the 2nd spot overall, and they are going to take cornerback Ken Webster out of Ole Miss. Now, I was talking to the GM about this. He was actually the one that was kind of running his mouth about the cornerbacks, but he was saying the whole time Ken Webster is by far the best corner in this draft. He saw 2 cornerbacks going in the draft. He can't believe Ken Webster's still on the board. He thought this guy should have been gone a long time ago, and then to see 2 corners go and it's not him. Personally, is this my favorite pick? No, because I wanted to go back and get offensive line help. But it doesn't matter. The San Francisco 49ers need a lot of stuff, and if you believe Ken Webster is by far the best talent available, he's the best cornerback in this entire draft, it does make a lot of sense. The 49ers corners are terrible, and they need help. So, yeah, I'm on board. It wasn't my plan when I had him drafting out of it, but hey, you need the picks. That was the biggest reason. It wasn't just offensive line. We need more picks. We got 2 first-round draft picks now. And, yeah, the best corner available, if that's what you believe, is still on the board this late in the game. Absolutely great pick. 49ers taking Ken Webster, cornerback out of Ole Miss. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions are not wasting any time putting in their pick. They are going to select Arden Key, edge rusher out of LSU. Now, first of all, Arden Key is one of the guys. He's similar to Lamar Jackson in the fact that nobody can agree on where this guy belongs. Walter Football still has him as, I think, number 3 overall in the draft. I think he's extremely talented, but he has certainly fallen way down the draft board. There has been some rumblings that I've heard about him maybe not being too into football, which is a huge red flag. Anytime you hear somebody that's maybe not into it very much, you need to be very concerned about that. There's been a lot of elite talent that has been garbage in the NFL, and that's been their one red flag. The other issue with this pick that I'm not a big fan of, I don't know that Arden Key is a great fit for this team. However, as I said before, last time I drafted Arden Key, it's if you believe, as Walter Football does and as a lot of other people do, that Arden Key is one of the, some people think he is a top 5 talent in this draft. So if you're a 4-3 team and Arden Key is available, do you take him as a pass rusher? I don't know that you pass him up. I said this last time. He's listed right now as 6'6", 265. So typically you look at him and you say, okay, he's an outside linebacker. But you know what? The guy can easily play defensive end. I absolutely believe he can. Just think Julius Peppers for a second. First of all, at 6'6", the guy could put on another 10, 15 pounds and be the prototypical defensive end. But even if he can't or if he doesn't put on that weight, he's athletic enough to sort of surpass the whole, he's 15 pounds too light to be a defensive end kind of stuff. I just think there are certain people that are athletic enough to be able to play down. I can play up. I can play wherever you want me to play because I'm just going to go get that quarterback. I'm going to dominate this tackle in front of me. I'm not going to let this guy run around me. I can set the edge. I can come inside, outside, spin, push, pull. I can do whatever you want me to do. So if the Lions believe that that's what Arden Key is, and for this sake I'm going to assume that that's exactly what this GM was thinking, it makes a lot of sense. To have Arden Key, a top 5 pass rusher, fall into your lap this late in the draft, I don't care what scheme you play. I don't care if you play the psycho defense with 1 down lineman or whatever it is your base defense is, you're going to pick up Arden Key. Pick him up and play him as a nose tackle. Who cares? You got to play him. So Detroit Lions taking Arden Key, defensive end, out of LSU. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks, and these Seattle Seahawks make a bit of a surprise pick. I'm not a huge fan of it, but they're going to go with Ronald Jones, running back out of USC. Again, a lot of this comes down to the particular GMs and what they think, and that's part of what's fun about these mock drafts is it's not just about me. If this guy believes, and clearly he does, that Ronald Jones is a top running back and Seattle absolutely needs a running back, which I don't necessarily agree with, then you go with him, right? Running back out of USC is listed at 6 foot 200 pounds, somewhat of a smaller back, but I don't know. It's sort of a GM preference, but if I'm sitting back as a fan, I'm looking at this, I'm not too excited. I actually think they have some talent at running back. Maybe I'm a little biased, but as a Packer fan, I know what Eddie Lacy can do. He's not putting up the best, but I think that's because of his offensive line. The offensive line is not good. Between Thomas Rawls and, we've seen some stuff from Chris Carson, Eddie Lacy, CJ Prosise. They all have ability, but you need to get some offensive line help. So, taking a running back at this position in the first round, a guy that I don't even know if he's really worth a first-round look, not my favorite pick of the draft, but it is what it is. They like him. And as I've been saying this whole time, if you've got a running back that can really make a difference, it can turn around a team. And the defense still has a solid, or the team still has a solid defense. They can throw the ball. If they can get a solid run game going, they've got a much improved team. So if that's what they believe, and clearly that's what this GM believes they can do, that's what's going to happen. Count me as skeptical. Next up, we have our first playoff team, the Baltimore Ravens, and I have the Baltimore Ravens taking wide receiver James Washington out of Ohio State. The Ravens are not a very good football team right now, but there is talent on this team. They have a decent defense. Flacco, he's seen better years. You could go a different route with him, but I don't think that's a good value. Offensive line, there's really no good guards. The tackles and centers are okay. They need some better wide receivers. They don't have very good wide receiver talent, and I just think that's the best value. And for the need is a wide receiver. James Washington is a very good wide receiver out of Ohio State. I just think it made the most sense for this team. He's a talented guy. He should be an instant upgrade, an instant starter for this team. So the Baltimore Ravens are taking wide receiver James Washington out of Ohio State. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers, who are getting their second pick, and this time I got exactly what I wanted, as the GM of the 49ers selected offensive lineman Billy Price out of Ohio State. Billy Price, he's an interior offensive lineman is basically what he is. I believe he was a guard that moved over to center. He's doing both at a very high level. Not a very prominent name, but certainly a very good football player. Again, a lot of this comes down to preference, and it's an interior type of guy. It's also nice grabbing a guy with a lot of versatility on a team that needs a lot of different things, right? Especially along that offensive line. You need center, you need guard, you need tackle. So having a guy that can move along the offensive line, you never know where you're going to end up. You got free agency coming up. You've got more draft picks coming along in the future. Maybe you draft a center, maybe you draft a guard. Who knows how things are going to shake out? But having a guy as good as Billy Price is from a top program like this, being able to slide, if you pick up a center, fine, we'll put him at guard. If you got the guard figured out, you move him over to center, whatever it may be. He's a versatile piece. He's an instant starter. He's a guy that you need on your team. And he should be an instant upgrade for the 49ers. So a great second pick, in my opinion, with Billy Price, offensive lineman out of Ohio State. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons, and the Atlanta Falcons are going to take wide receiver Calvin Ridley out of Alabama. And I got to say, I don't really understand the pick. He may be the best available talent, but the Falcons are very well known for their desire to pick for need and not talent. So that clearly isn't the reason for the pick, and I guess I just don't get it. Obviously, their offense has taken a big step backwards, and I think when you fire your offensive coordinator, that's bound to happen, right? You have one of the best offenses around, and then you lose your offensive coordinator. That's what's going to happen. But you've got Jones and you've got Sanu, and you bring in Calvin Ridley, and what do? Do you bench Sanu? I mean, Sanu isn't. I guess you wouldn't want to call him elite, but the last 2 years he's been a very, very good wide receiver for the Falcons. Calvin Ridley, I don't believe he's going to be a slot guy, and even if he is, I suppose in 3 wide sets you put Sanu in the slot and you replace Gabriel with Calvin Ridley, maybe. But even so, Gabriel's a dangerous guy, and he brings a unique skill set with his speed. So, you need another defensive end. You could use a cornerback. You could use, offensive line. Maybe safety, linebacker. I mean, there's a lot of different areas, not horrible, but they could use a little bit of help. Wide receiver is maybe one of those areas where I would just say stay away from, But, hey, it is what it is. The Falcons are going to take a very talented guy, and who knows what's going to happen. Maybe he knows something I don't. Sanu's contract is up or something. I'm not really sure. Didn't get a chance to talk to him after the fact, but that is the pick. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that pick. Let me know if I missed something on that one. Next up, we have the Carolina Panthers, and the Panthers are going to select offensive tackle Martinez Rankin out of Mississippi State. As it stands right now, the Panthers are a team that could use a lot of help in a lot of places. You could go. It's kind of hard to miss, to be completely honest, with this team. You can go with just about any position, and you can make a case for it. I think offensive line is another one of those areas. Matt Khalil is just not cutting it over there. He's never really had it. It's his rookie year. Even his first 2 years, he was decent, but for some reason, the guy has just completely fallen off. He's not getting the job done over there. They've got a lot of tackles sitting on the bench, but I'm not sure you have a lot of talent anywhere along there. Darrell Williams is a solid tackle, but outside of him, what do you have available to you? If you're going to be a good football team, you got to be able to protect your quarterback, and you got to get this run game going. They don't have much going in that regard either. So I think it's a very good pick. It's just, dependent on what you think of Martinez Rankin, but if you think he's worthy of the pick at this spot, it makes a lot of sense to me, especially since it's a left tackle position that's struggling. If you've got a guy that you think can step in and play immediately at left tackle, it makes all the sense in the world. So I'm good with the pick. Martinez Rankin going to the Carolina Panthers. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting wide receiver Christian Kirk out of Texas A&M. Bottom line is they've invested a lot in this defense. The defense is very good. My top priority is going to be quarterback. I think you need to move on from Blake Bortles as much as he can show flashes of being talented. Again, we're talking about a team that has a ceiling so long as Blake Bortles is the quarterback. I didn't really see a lot of great quarterbacks at a value here, and I didn't feel like reaching once again. You could also go offensive line if you so chose. You got to give your quarterback some help. You got to give your running back some help. But again, wasn't too thrilled with the options we had there. Christian Kirk, on the other hand, is another guy that's been talked about in the top 10 conversation. Extremely athletic player. More than likely going to be a slot guy. I know you got the Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns thing going on over there. But even so, you get those guys back healthy. If you put them on the outside, you can put Christian Kirk in the slot, and you got yourself a pretty solid wide receiver trio. Hopefully you can address the offensive line later on in the draft. And then, I think with that ability, with those three wide receivers, with that defense, with this running back, with an upgraded offensive line, it might be enough to mask the problems with Blake Bortles. Well, I'm not really sure if that's the case, but who knows? Either way, I think it's the best pick to make at this point in the draft, so that's what I went with. Christian Kirk to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Texas A&M. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans, and the Tennessee Titans are going to select pass rusher Dorance Armstrong. From where I'm sitting, I can't see that as a top priority, but Dorance Armstrong plays a premium position, and if you believe he is an elite, or if you believe that he's fallen down the draft, maybe you think he's a top 15 type guy, then the pick makes sense to me. You don't really have elite pass rushers, but I don't really have a problem with my front seven, to be completely honest. My defense as a whole is not that bad. I would probably want to prioritize offense. I know I went wide receiver and I got my head chopped off. I don't really know why. Your wide receivers suck. I'm sorry, Titans fans. Maybe you don't realize that, but they're not good. Running back, even though you got two of them, you're not getting much out of them. Offensive line, I think, makes sense. That's probably going to be my priority. But again, if you think Dorance Armstrong is a premium type guy, a primo position, and a great talent, then go ahead and pull the trigger, I suppose. But for me personally, I'm looking at that and kind of shaking my head a little bit. At pick 27, we got the Rams, and the Rams are finally going to take our first defensive lineman. They are going to take Payne out of Alabama. There's some real talented defensive linemen, and I'm surprised that they lasted this long. I can't say I understand why the Rams are the first team to take him. I don't hate the pick just because Payne is another one that's in the top 10, top 15 conversation. He's fallen way too far. But if there's one thing the Rams are doing right now, it's defensive tackle with Brockers, Westbrook, and Donald. Donald obviously being the best, one of the best to ever do it on the inside. I mean, the guy is just perfect. I mean, against the pass, against the run, he's just completely unstoppable. But, you match up Payne, say you put him at nose tackle and you got Brockers on one side and Donald on the other. I mean, we're just stacking success here. I mean, it's sort of like the Falcons taking a wide receiver, I guess. It's just how good can we be at this position? Let's see if we can just keep getting better and better. For my money, pass rusher, inside linebacker, cornerback, offensive line, tight end, wide receiver, any of these things maybe are going to be a little bit better than defensive tackle. But I guess I don't hate it just from a talent perspective, right? Take the best player available. This is probably the best player available at this position, except for maybe the guy who's going to be going next. Speaking of next, we have the New Orleans Saints, and the New Orleans Saints are going to take defensive tackle out of Clemson, Christian Wilkins. It's basically the exact same thing all over again. This is the one area that they maybe don't need help. I like the front. Well, I don't know if I would say I like the front seven. They need some linebacker help, but the front four that they have right now with, I don't know, interior is maybe not quite as good. They could get a little bit better, but I like their front four. I like their front in general. But again, from the standpoint of this guy has fallen entirely too far, it kind of makes sense. I guess I just don't know what you do with him. Even if he starts instantly, you put him in, how big of an upgrade is he really? And you're just benching talent that you already have. Linebacker, safety, cornerback, certainly need some offensive line help. You got to look for a replacement for Breeze. I think you've got the running back situation figured out, but, pretty much anywhere else would make more sense to me. But again, from a best player available standpoint, if that's where we're going to go, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Again, if I'm missing something, maybe somebody's going to be gone next year. Maybe I'm over ranking somebody in my mind. I don't, as a fan, I'm upset by it. I'm looking at this and saying best player available can just go pound sand somewhere, because we need a lot of things, and this is not one of them. But certainly one of the best players in this draft seems to be Christian Wilkins, and the Saints are somehow going to get him at the end of the draft. So there's got to be some excitement, at least in that regard. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to take inside linebacker Micah Kiser. The Saints need a lot of things as well. Is inside linebacker the biggest need? Probably not. But, outside of Shazier, who has really stepped it up this year, they do need some help. Vince Williams he's okay. He's sort of the Packers equivalent of a Jake Ryan. You don't hate him, but you certainly wouldn't mind an upgrade in that area. Pass rusher wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. You could use offensive line, tight end, maybe even wide receiver. There's a lot of needs that they have. But in this particular case, and with the draft board I was using, Micah Kiser was just outside of the top 10. So from that standpoint, looking at need as well as value, I thought Micah Kiser was a pretty good pick here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and I had the Minnesota Vikings taking offensive tackle Jamarco Jones out of Ohio State. Got a lot of Ohio State Buckeyes going in the first round. Jamarco Jones, I think I mentioned last week, is a fast riser. On the big boards, starting to see his name pop up quite a bit. The Vikings, it's no surprise that they need help along the offensive line. They're doing really, really well, especially with all the injuries. It's really incredible to see what they're able to do, to have quarterback after quarterback go down, to have your star running back that you just drafted go down, and to still be able to play at such a high level is really incredible, especially considering how little production they're getting out of this offensive line, as much as they've tried to do. I guess what I'm saying is, imagine this team with a good offensive line, to be able to have these quarterbacks stand in the pocket, to be able to have your new running back run the ball down your throat, and have this defense. I'm not happy even thinking about it. In this case, Jamarco Jones, I think, makes a lot of sense. If you disagree, please tell me in the comments. But I can't even imagine, other than I think Jamarco Jones is a joke, is not that good, whatever, I can't imagine how this could be a bad pick. Next up, we have the New England Patriots, the team that refuses to die. And the GM for them decided to take offensive tackle out of Clemson, Mitch Hyatt. I guess I don't know why I never considered tackle for the Patriots. It makes a ton of sense. I mean, you got Tom Brady, the guy is going to play until he's 74 years old. You got to be able to protect him. Their left tackle is a solid football player, Nate Solder, but he's getting up in age. Along the right tackle spot, you don't have a ton of talent. I mean, just in general, the entire offensive line is just kind of And, with their ability to use the run game effectively, and Brady needing to be able to, I shouldn't say he needs it. He does well under pressure as well. But you still got to protect him, especially in his old age. He seems unbreakable, but he's certainly not. So I actually think the pick makes a lot of sense. I never really even considered it. Shame on me, but I like the pick. Whether or not, again, it's a good value for this particular player, I don't know. But assuming that we like this guy at this value, he's the next best player. I think Mitch Hyatt, offensive tackle out of Clemson, makes a ton of sense. Finally, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, and for those of you that don't know or haven't listened or haven't figured it out, I'm not predicting who wins the Super Bowl. I'm simply saying if the draft were to end today, I had somebody flipping out saying, I can't believe you think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Dude, do you even listen? No. If the draft were today, what is the order? This is the fact of the matter. I'm sorry your Patriots did not, come in last here. That's just the way she goes, folks. But anyways, we have the Eagles taking inside linebacker Roquan Smith. Again, this particular GM, he was he thought Roquan Smith was by far the best inside linebacker in the draft. He was shocked to see that nobody was taking him. When the pick came, he said, wait a minute, is he still available? I thought he should have been gone a long time ago. So he is extremely excited about this pick. And I certainly would be too. Kendricks is a solid inside linebacker, but as well as this team is playing, they need a couple, they need help in a couple different areas. But linebacker is one of them, and they got to continue to build on what they're doing, regardless of what's going to happen. Philadelphia Eagles have a shot. I definitely don't disagree. They've had somewhat of an easy road. They've had one of the easiest schedules of any team to get to this point. But there's no question this is a talented football team. I'm not going to try to undermine that. Carson Wentz is playing phenomenally. They could use some wide receiver help. They can use a lot of things. But if you believe, as this GM clearly did, that Roquan Smith is by far the best inside linebacker in this draft, he should have been gone in the middle of the first round, if not sooner. He's here at pick 32. I can't even believe what's happening. We're going to take inside linebacker Roquan Smith out of Georgia. Extremely excited. So that's it. That's all there is. And, like I said, some of the guys that I was talking to, they wanted to do a round 2. Please, 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 if you want to be involved, and we get thousands of listeners, if you want to participate in this, please go join the Facebook group. That's where all the communications take place. You can message me on Twitter or email if you want. I'll put that back up. Hopefully you're looking at it right now. But go check in the description for all the information that you're going to need. That the Facebook group is where we're going to be setting this up. I'm starting today. We're going to start setting up, having people sign up for the team that they want to cover. We're going to try to switch up how we do it. It's going to be simple communication. This is your team. You know your team. We're going to be doing one team at a time and trades and the whole thing. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to get this thing really dialed in. The first one was a little rocky. Second one I'm hoping is going to be a little better, and by the time that the off season comes, this is going to be official. I got plans. Let's just put it that way. So if you want to be a part of it, and I hope you do, please join the Facebook group. And especially if you thought some of these picks were stupid and you could do a lot better, come show us what you got. Come pick a team and come jump in on this next draft. Like I said, we're going to be signing up starting today for next week. The draft will probably be on Tuesday because I want to know what the official draft order is, and that won't be set until after Monday Night Football. So starting maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we're going to have this thing set up and ready to go. But otherwise, just stay tuned because next week, Thursday, Friday, we're going to have another video up for you. So thanks a lot again for all you guys watching. I really appreciate it. This is only the second video, and it's grown exponentially from video 1 to video 2. I'm excited to see what video 3 brings. But that's it. You folks enjoy your day, and I will talk to you hopefully soon in the Facebook group.